welcome to our Hypurpley Books Summer Seminars. And we're so happy today. We have Sarah Clancy, or S.E. Clancy as her pen name is, with us to share about book covers. And I always say you never get a second chance to make a good first impression. Isn't that the phrase? And our book covers are basically that. First impressions. I'm excited to hear what she has to say. Before we begin, though, I wanted to make a couple of announcements. I'm going to share my screen. Next month, we have another workshop on the 3rd of August, and Hannah Pruitt will be sharing with us, and she's here with us tonight too. But she'll be sharing with us about how to work with an illustrator and all the ins and outs of illustrations in our work. And especially because so many of us write picture books, this is really important. And then the other announcement I have is about a writer's retreat. And we have a writer's retreat planned for April next year. And if you got my email a while back, there were different dates on it. So I want to make sure you notice the change in the date. What happened was we realized after we set the date and got everything planned that my son's graduating that weekend in California. So being in Oklahoma is not going to work if we have to be in California at the same time. So we moved it up a week. And so it's April 3rd through 25th next year at Lake Tenkiller. We won't be swimming. It'll still be cold at that point, but it's still going to be beautiful. It should be turning green and looking really pretty. And we have a cabin to stay in. It's going to be really comfortable and a lot of fun. And we have our guest speakers the main speakers are Hannah Pruitt and Don Stevens, and they'll be sharing with us. And then I'm going to share a devotional, and we have Lindsay Dondale as our worship leader, and she's an amazing Christian singer, songwriter. So I'm so excited about this. This has been a dream of mine for quite a while, and I'm excited to offer this. We don't have a whole lot for writers going on in the Midwest. So this opens up a door for those of us in Texas, Oklahoma, Missouri, Chicago, in this part of the world. So I just wanted to let everybody know about that. All right. So let's get started. And I would ask everyone to mute your mics, but we are going to have a Q&A later on. So you have a choice. You can just ask your question later, or you can put it in the chat and we'll ask it for you. Okay, so first let's open with prayer, because everything we do, of course, we want to pray about and make sure that we are doing what God wants. So let's pray. Father, I thank you so much for these opportunities we have to come together as writers, as Christians who want to please you, who want to help make your name known among the nations. And we just pray, Father, that you would bless this time we have together, that you would work in each of our lives in the way that you have chosen to use our lives, to use our talent. We pray that you would guide us as we write, as we share with others, that we would say and write exactly what we need to. I pray now for Sarah, especially as she shares with us. I pray that you would just bless her and just fill her with your spirit, Father. And we just thank you for this time we have together. And we pray this in Jesus' name. Amen. Okay, so Sarah, you have, whoops, I clicked the wrong thing. Hang on. You have permission, I believe. Yes, you have permission to share at will. And so, do you want me to ask you questions, or do you want to just share? That's totally up to you.
I can go ahead and share. How long do you want me to speak for? Because Hannah will tell you I can talk. I can talk, and I can really, really talk. I always knew as a little girl that I wanted to talk, and this is what so.
Well, we just want to fill no more than 2 hours. So anything within 2 hours.
Okay. So I guess what I can start first with is my name is Sarah. Clancy is not my last name. I actually use a pen name, which is something that I chose to do early on in my journey, just to kind of build a little bit of privacy. When I first started writing, I have daughters who were younger, and I just wanted to provide a little bit of anonymity or a layer. People can find me pretty easily by my real last name. That was something that I chose to do. So if you look me up by Sarah Clancy or S.E. Clancy, also S.E. Clancy gets awkward. People don't know what to call me. My real first name is Sarah. And I am actually now transitioning into using my first name, which I should have done a long time ago, because initials, I thought I would be super clever and try to go like a S.E. Hinton. And now it just makes it awkward. People look at my name badge and have no idea what to call me. So got into cover art quite by accident. It all started when I wrote my first YA novel years ago, Dare by my oldest, Victoria Grace the Jerkface. We had what was called the 5-page flip test. I would buy her any book at Barnes and Noble, any book she wanted. If the 5 pages we flipped to had to be a clean read, had to have no swearing and word no sex, and you would be surprised at how many of those books actually failed. So if it had either of those within the 5 pages, it was a no-go. If they were clean, I mean, of course things slip through the cracks. It just happens. But the 5-page flip test, you'd be surprised at how well it works. One day she went in and we were looking at a book that, everybody was reading and everybody loved. And of course, my second random page was pretty graphic sexting between kids. And I was like, nope, not happening. And she was so angry with me. And her fighting words to me were, well, I bet you can't write something that I'll read. And I said, well, I bet you I can. And therein came the bet, basically, to write something that my daughter would like to read, and quite frankly, what I would like to read. I started out writing historical fiction, and I realized pretty quickly I didn't like writing it. But I went into it thinking that that's what everybody does in the Christian, author world. You just slide into historical fiction and you just figure out what era you're going to. Are you going to be World War II? Are you going to be revolutionary? Are you going to be you're writing Jane Austen spinoffs, which would be what I would want to do every day. But it just didn't fit me. And so when I actually stepped into the YA realm for Christian, or it's not even necessarily Christian, I just realized how much I love it. I love the language. I love being able to play off of a modern era where a lot of information is thrown at you. And you don't get all the answers, even though you want to. And so where the cover art comes into it is I actually, in our local writers group, we have a gentleman who is a designer and who has designed several of our friends' Rich Bullock. That's the author. All of his covers are designed by Robert Heslin. I just totally blanked on his last name, Hannah, I'm sorry. Henslin. I paid him. I sat down and I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. I think I'm going to write this book and I'd love to have you make a cover. So we met for 2 hours and we went back and forth and back and forth. And it was really interesting. I'm going to talk while I flip screens because I'm going to bring up some of my emails and show you guys. We met at a local Starbucks, and it is really strange sitting down with somebody and trying to, when you have your story finished and you're like, I think this is the cover I want. And you're like, great, this sounds like the, perfect cover. Perfect. Yeah, whatever. Then you realize in going back and forth that there really is not, sorry, my computer decided to, that what you're trying to describe is really not what they're seeing or hearing. Their perception of what you're describing is like completely different. And I remember when Robert sent over his first covers to me, how kind of frustrated I was with the process because I didn't understand why what I was describing he wasn't getting. So, because I was like, it's a teenage book. It's for, I actually didn't know what it was called. I didn't know it was called young adults, guys. Sorry. When I first started, I was like, it's for teenagers. That's, teens should want to look at this type of, so let me share my screen now because I have the very first, and Hannah, I don't even know if you've seen this. This is actually the very first cover that was designed for my book. And it is kind of what I said I wanted. That's also my real name. Pretend you didn't see that. I'm kidding. You can find. But it was kind of what I wanted, but not really what I wanted. And so he actually sent me over a few for what he and I designed. The older lady in my story, her name is Marigold. So we were bouncing back and forth between what I thought I was describing and what he was hearing and then designing. So these are the different ones where he was trying to go back and forth. And everything he sent over, I was just actually unhappy with. But here's the thing. I don't know if you guys have ever paid editors before and had a bad editing experience. I have. It's because I didn't fit with the editor. And although these actually are really cute, looking back, this is really cute. I love the font. I don't necessarily love the flower, but it didn't fit something about it didn't fit. It wasn't until we actually took a year off because I was getting kind of frustrated about it. I ended up taking a picture of my daughter one time sitting in her bedroom up with her legs up on the wall like this. And I sent it to him and I said, wouldn't it be funny to turn this into the cover? So that's her weird legs holding her phone like that. And that was just me. I had sent him my picture from my phone, and he sent me the art. See on the right hand side, he was the one that designed the R that drops, and he was the one that came up with the font. And he's like, "This is actually a great cover. Let's go ahead and work with it." But this is a year after, and this is a year after I've had now what? I only showed you 4. There's 8 different covers that I was just like, this is not right. So I knew we had hit something here, but this cover wouldn't look wonderful without the font. I'm pointing like as if you guys can see my finger. Sorry if you see me pointing. The font works perfectly. So that was the first version of it. And then, and I think this is then I actually hired a professional photographer, a friend of mine, who came over and actually set my daughter up on her wall. Mind you, these sticky notes on her wall were her on her wall. I just had her lean on her bed again, put on pants this time because she was complaining that she hadn't shaved her legs. So I said, put on pants. I mean, that's just how I work. Took a picture of her with a black screen right here because I thought, if anything, Robert might be able to drop a phone, like a picture on the phone of like what she's working with. But if you notice, it still is really true to the original, like just snapshot I sent over to him. But if you look, see how the font, the color has changed a little bit. So we were still kind of toying with it. And then now let me go back to, sorry, my Zoom. Ever presenting with Zoom, and then it moves your Zoom box and you're like, I can't get to where I'm going. All these pictures, all these emails, guys, are what goes into a book. So here you go. Then it changed into this. And I know that doesn't look like there's much, but now he changed the whole background cover to where there's a little bit of depth of her legs on the wall. And see, now she has a picture on her phone screen. It still has the wrong name. But see how we're getting closer? So this is the evolution of, you see all these up here, the evolution of the cover. Here's where we hit it. Actually, this is where we hit the winner with the wrong name. But this is where we hit the winner, where we realized that the black matched her sweater and it made it, and we actually took the depth out of the shadows to where it was a brighter blue. But it took us, this was an almost 2-year design for this because I wasn't in any hurry. This was me thinking that I was going to actually self-publish. So let me stop sharing right here. This was me thinking I was going to self-publish. So I was trying to come up with cover art because, as Terry said, your cover, it actually matters. Cover art is subjective. It's like walking. I had the grand experience of going to the Museum of Modern Art earlier this year. Boy, did it open my eyes to art. Because I walked into some stuff and I was looking at it going, I could buy this at a yard sale for 25 cents. And then I got to see a Picasso, which I have never loved Picasso. But then I saw some of his earlier stuff and I was in love with it because it really spoke to me. And it kind of helped me understand how subjective art is. And your artwork on your cover is subjective to the viewer, which is why your first look at a cover, anybody's first look at your cover, it will be judged. If anybody says that they don't judge a book by their cover, they probably are just trying to be nice to you. So it is really important that if you are producing your own cover or you're paying somebody to produce your cover, that it is worked to where you want it, to where you're proud, where you're going to be posting it all over. I was thrilled every time I posted my picture of my cover art. I actually didn't end up self-publishing that. I ended up getting picked up by a traditional publisher. I was agented at the time and I found the contract and I asked her, hey, I actually have a professionally designed cover. Would you consider using this? And they actually agreed to it. So it was very fun to go through and know that my kid was on the cover of my first book that went out there. So, but I don't think if I had designed the cover back then, like with just by my snapshot, the first one, the snapshot that I sent of her feet on the wall with all the shadows and it wasn't lit correctly, that would have been terrible. It wouldn't have really done as well cover wise. And that was my first kind of step into cover art. And I didn't know that I would have so much input into it until I realized I needed input into it because I needed to love it. My second foray into it was I have a couple of novellas that I wanted to self-publish. One is about Rahab. Rahab is my favorite character in the Bible, and I have always wanted to tell her story. And one is about Ruth. So I have let me bring up my share my screen again. When I wrote my story about Rahab, her name is true in the story. I knew that I wanted to convey a woman on the cover, and I didn't. And in my story, I don't hide her profession. It is very up in front. I believe it's very important to portray that. It's portrayed very vividly in the Bible. It does not hide the fact that what she did for a living. But I also wanted to portray a beautiful woman because I believe that the redemptive story of Rahab is amazing. So I didn't know what I was looking for, to be honest with you. I just knew that I didn't was late one night and I was looking through pictures, to be honest with you, stock pictures. And here lies the problem. Looking through stock pictures, pictures can cost anywhere between $35 to use for a cover up to hundreds of dollars to use for a cover. So I ended up looking on Pexels, Pexels, Pexels.com, which has a lot of free art. And I found this cover and I thought, I actually found my cover. And this is not the actual rendition of the picture. The picture itself is actually colored. And I ended up contacting the photographer who took this through Pexels and asking him if I could purchase the rights to this picture. Even though it was on there for free, I didn't feel right using his picture on my cover without asking him. And he was completely gracious and was excited and asked if he could see the end result, which I sent to him. And the reason why I offered to compensate him for his work is, one, he's an artist. He may not be a writer, but he's an artist. In his own way, he does the same thing what we're doing, but he does it in a different media. So it wouldn't be right for me to take his work. Even if I asked for it for free, it wouldn't have been right to not offer him some compensation. And that is my own conviction. If you have artists who offer it for free on Pexels.com, as long as you give them attribution and you have permission, do with it as you will. Because sometimes we're within budget. I mean, people have budgets, and if they could do free with attribution and it's legal, absolutely good. But this gentleman allowed me to purchase the rights, and this is the cover that I designed. This is about the 14th millionth design of this cover. Because guess what? I had to play with the fonts. I had to play with the placing. I had to play with the sizing of the fonts. This little black bar right here where it has the subtitle, that's actually, I didn't put that black bar across. That horizontal black bar is actually railing in that picture. So I used the railing as part of the design concept. And what it ended up doing is it went into playing into, let me see if I can. No, you guys will get to see my Amazon cart. I have stuff in my Amazon cart. Hang on a minute. My Zoom bar's in the way again. Here we go. It went into play into Mercy, the second cover that I made. Also, the reason why I did the first cover for True, I was on a budget. I didn't have an extra few $1,000s, nope, few $100s to hire Robert again. At that time, it was a novella. It was absolutely just a story from my heart. I just wanted to be able to get it out into the world. So that's why I paid for the editing, I paid for the formatting, and I paid the gentleman who was the photographer. But I also thought it was kind of cool. I'm like, hey, look at me. I made a book art, or book art. I made a book cover. So when I went to design the second book, I knew I wanted to bring, you remember the rail that was in there? I kind of want to bring a little bit of the rail into it, but I didn't want it to be matchy-matchy. That's one thing that I do not like. So I'll take you through over to Canva, which is where I use Canva for my book art. I keep saying book art. Sorry, guys. Like I'm 12. Book art, yay. I can show you all the different versions of this that came through. I don't know why I picked this tattoo. I just think it's a beautiful there's mention of a tattoo in my book, but this tattoo spoke to me, but it actually was, if you can, I don't know if you guys can tell on this very first one. Let me zoom into it. See how it's a color? And you can see all the hair and everything. I knew I really didn't want to scare my people looking at the cover that way. And I also wanted to match the first cover. The first cover was black and white, so I really wanted to go with something that was black and white. So then here I was playing with some spacing. Actually, yeah, if you looked, it's the spacing of my name. Let's see. And then Mercy is in a slightly different font. And then in the third version, I change it to black and white, a version of black and white, because there's a filter on this one. Here's one where if you see it here at the top of 3, how it says a contemporary retelling of Ruth, and down here it doesn't say that. But see how the black and white is more bold? I was playing with the filter to try to actually get it to match the black and white off of the true cover. And so that last one is actually where I went with. I didn't put a contemporary retelling of Ruth at the top. I ended up putting it down in the middle just because it flowed a little bit better. But as you can see, there's different versions. That is the beauty of being able, when you do design your own covers, your edits are free. So you can play around all you want with filters and fonts and sizing and all that kind of jazz. I'm going to pause right now. Does anybody have any questions that they need answered or anything? Okay, I'm going to take a drink of water because I talk a lot. Sorry. I'm going to say that when I said a little bit ago that I use Canva, that is almost exclusively what I use. Pop back in and share my screen again. I stumbled into Canva because it was free. There is a paid version, a pro version, that has a ton of tools, pictures, filters, fonts that aren't available on the free version. But the free version of Canva, it's mighty. It's a huge, mighty tool. Both my covers for True and Mercy were both created on the free version of Canva. Also on the Mercy mockup, I forgot to tell you, the tattoo picture, I actually found it on Pexels, and the gentleman who I reached out to did not want compensation. And we got to a short conversation. He asked me what my book was about. He goes, before I accept compensation, can you tell me a little bit about your book? And I said, well, I'm a Christian writer. It's a contemporary retelling of Ruth. And he goes, I'm a pastor. And so it was crazy how, and we're still friends to this day. And he is an amazing photographer up out of Idaho. And I happened to find his picture on Pexels, and we got into a conversation about art and how his art is photography and mine is writing. So back to Canva. Sorry about that. Canva is my preference when it comes to any creation type, because I've been doing it for so many years. You'll have people who swear up and down that they only use Photoshop, or they use other, I think Hannah and I have gone back and forth a couple times between like different videoing? What am I talking about today? Sorry, guys. Like when you're doing different recording apps and stuff like that, just like there are different uses for recording. That Canva, though, is the only one that I teach because I know it. I've done several classes on Canva. Canva evolves, so it does change. And so sometimes I'm like, look, I'm not relevant anymore, but it's fine. It's fine. My kids keep me in check. They tell me I'm not relevant, so it's fine. Where I started using Canva actually was years ago to do, I'm not sure if you guys have seen my Instagram. I'll just pop up my latest one that I was creating the other night. I started making my Instagram posts on Canva. It's loading. It's forever loading right now. I'm sorry. There we go. I just started using Canva because it was free. And it allowed me to play with so many different things. So there's that. You can bring in your own photos in the background. They have a bunch of stock free photos. So like this is a free photo that I found on Canva that I just added my own wording to. So that's why I like Canva, because I grew up very poor. And I was the third kid, so I had two older sisters, so I got to wear the same dress 3 times for years. When my mom would buy us all matching dresses, I got to wear them for years. So I chose Canva just because I thought, if I can really get a hold of this platform and learn how to do it well, and it actually has served me really well. I work with different writers conferences and create their graphics. Right now, if you go onto West Coast Christian Writers Conference, I actually have those graphics I've done this year. So you can see the power of Canva. They have the pro version, so they have a lot more tools than I have made it. I know this, it sounds so weird. I have tried to make a conscious effort to stay in the free version because I like to teach people the free version. I like to teach people that there are actually huge options if you can't pay $100, $500 extra for a cover. That said, I will go backwards and say your covers are your first look and you'll be judged by them. So unless you're willing to take time and produce a really well-looking cover, you're going to be judged by them. Even if it's free, even if you have paid somebody a few $100s. What I have learned along the years is that, especially with covers, placement matters on a cover. Besides the picture itself, placement matters, font matters. This is not a design of a book, but I just wanted to show you, I was asked to design a logo for a farm. So after listening to the person, I thought I was hearing them correctly, and I wasn't. So these are all the different versions that I ended up coming up with. All these are free versions, by the way. And that's the version we ended up with, which is a far cry from I would like a circle with my name in cursive, which is actually the first instructions I got. And this is what was the final version. So it's subjective when you're working with somebody. So if you do work with somebody, you do have to give grace. You also have to know if that's just not the right person to work with. If it's not a deadline that you're up against, that you can give yourself time to step away and maybe say, am I looking at this wrong, or am I being too dramatic about this? That kind of a thing. So I wanted to show you this. I know it's not a book cover, but I wanted to show you all the different, but these are all things I created for free, just as I was chatting with a friend who was looking for a logo. I actually have permission to share the next thing. Have you guys heard of Tara Johnson? Let me bring up her cover real quick. Oh, my Zoom bar is in the way again. I know that's crazy. Hang on a minute. Tara Johnson. To speak his name. All right. This gorgeous cover right here, that is a cover that I had the pleasure of designing. And working with Tara was actually a phenomenal experience. Tara is represented by Books and Such, and her agent is wow, that was funny. Janet Grant, not Granite, although she is like a rock and she's absolutely wonderful. Janet and Wendy Lawton created Books and Such, and they have absolutely spearheaded a lot in the Christian industry, in the Christian author industry. And when Tara wanted to put this book out for to see if any house would take it, Janet said, "I don't think so. This would be something that you would have to do on your own." When Tara came to me and said, "Hey, would you be interested in doing a book cover?" I was like, "Sure, totally. That would be great." Not really thinking that she picked me. Well, she picked me. She's like, "Well, this is what I'm looking for. I'm looking for like a beach, and this is the year, and it's 1816. It's 1816. It's right there. And this is the year," because I had to look up stuff because I'm like, what kind of ships are in 1816? I don't know. That's not what I write. I write kids in borrowed cars and stuff like that. I don't write about ships and petticoats and corsets and stuff like that. I would read that and go, that sounds great. And people from that writing that era are like, that is the wrong type of petticoat. And I'm like, okay, I don't know. The bicycles invented? I have no idea. But have known Tara for years. I met her at Mount Hermon. Ironically, we met in a class it was, I think, it wasn't my first year. It was the second year that I went. It was the very last day. We still don't know who the teacher was, but we were sitting there and the teacher, whoever it was, we know it was a woman, and it was the very beginning of the class, and she said something along the lines of sarcasm has no place in writing. And I scoffed, as I'm prone to do, especially when it talks about sarcasm. And she did next to me, and she like cocked her head side, and she goes, right. And from that moment on, Tara and I have been fast friends. So, and this is years later that she actually entrusted me to design a book cover for her. So I was a little bit terrified. So when we went back and forth, this is not the first version I came up with. This is about the 20 millionth version I came up with. What we ended up finding out is that for her version, she wanted subtlety. She wanted a subtle nod to the ocean. She didn't want a picture of the ocean waves, but she wanted a picture of the ocean waves. Does that make sense? It's like when you want something but not quite that something and you have trouble describing it, which is ironic when you're a writer. When you can't, you're like, there's a picture I'm trying to describe, but I can't describe it. But yeah, she wanted the subtlety of an ocean. And when I found this picture, believe it or not, guys, this picture was actually a picture that was free to use, with no attribution either. It was crazy. And I said, and it didn't look like this. It was a much grander picture. And I actually shrunk it down just to the hint of a wave on a picture on the front of a book. And it was, the crazy part is you have to come up with room for a title and your name, and if you want a subtitle. But see how it's all in that dark space? If I had shifted all that down and the wave was at the bottom, then her name would have had to be in dark colors, or it would have been washed out. See how up here it's almost, I was really struggling with this because right where it says the wings, how light that blue is, I struggled with it because I'm like, is it too washed out? Because that's where I got really super critical about it. But she loved it, and it actually, it's a phenomenal book. It's really, really good. But that was my first foray into actually designing a book cover for somebody else. And I was super pleased with that. So that came out, when did it come out? I don't know when it came out. It came out last year. I didn't realize it was so quickly. Well, she got a hold of me earlier this year and said, hey, can you design the cover to my next one? I'm like, of course I can design the cover to the next one. Then I was like, what am I doing? Why do I keep doing this to myself? But again, also just FYI, this whole cover on the left-hand side was designed with free Canva. I love pushing my limits of figuring out free. Also, this font right here, this font will not work for YA. I'm just telling you right now, this font is very typical for romantic, historic romance, that kind of a thing, that kind of thing. And the italics is actually pretty standard for subtitles, so you can usually get away with it. But I also, Tara and I, when we talked back and forth about what font to use, I probably picked 20 different fonts. Some were too scrolly, some were too cursive-y, some were too blocky. Sometimes we tried all caps, sometimes we tried to only, I think this was the one, we actually had tried two, being the only capital, the T, but like having it really big, like almost all the way up to this line right here, and it just looked silly. So it was a matter of, and I wish I could go back. This is where I learned poorly. I didn't keep all my drafts for this one, but I am here to show you that this is the next one. This is the one that I just designed for her second book. I did get permission right before I came on to show you. So if you notice, it has the same font, which is, it's important for continuity. When you look at the series Harry Potter, if you look at Harry Potter series, or if you look at Little House on the Prairie series, like if you buy the same edition, because that matters. If you look, all the titles are the same. They're the same size, they're the same font. They look, the placements are very the same. Sorry, guys. I write, I don't speak for a living. I'm so sorry. It's really important to try to pull the same parts so that they're not matchy-matchy, but they actually resemble each other. When she and I were talking about this cover, she wanted the stars, the forest, but not the stars. So it's just one of those where you're like, I actually get what you're saying. You're looking for not a night shot, because that's, if you think about it, that cover versus this cover, this is a hint of an ocean. And so she was looking for a hint of something to do with, you know, a forest at night. When I found this original picture, I had told her, I said, I don't know if you'll like this one because this, it has green in the sky. And she's like, I don't know. So let me go backwards and show you guys the progression of To Chase the Stars. Crazy enough, this is actually my first draft. The very first one that I designed is actually what she picked. But I didn't know if she would like the green in the sky. I liked the green in the sky, but I didn't know if she would. So here, if you notice up here, there's a lot of blue. Down here, I moved the picture and I made it bigger so that there was more green in the sky, because I was like, I'm gonna make all the sky green. Down here, I made the trees, see the tree on the left-hand side, almost looks like an upside down ice cream cone. And over here, I just moved it sideways even more because I was trying to get more stars-ish. On this one, I moved that big tree all the way out. And then for some reason, I got stuck on green sky. And then I was done with this one. I was like, green skies are dumb. That's just me. That's how my process works. I'm like, that's dumb. I need blue skies. And I was like, this is actually really cool. Because to me, I was like, this actually kind of matches this. See those blues? See those blues? Look at how cool that is. See how there's a little bit of a wave right there that would kind of match the first one. And there's kind of looks like there's watercolor. That's perfect. That's great. And I was like, what if it's too much? What if she wants not blue sky? What if she wants like purple, like Northern Lights? So then I went back to kind of like that first one, found that picture. And I was like, what if she doesn't want stars at all? Or like only a couple of stars? So this one I picked more mountains and like just a couple of stars at the top. But if you notice, guys, the same thing that's traveling through between the covers are see the top right here? This and this. It's traveling through. The placement is different. See, so To Chase the Stars is way up there. It's down there. It's down there. Tara's name stays in the same spot. So here's, this is actually one, I think this is from up here. Nope. So this cover, this one is actually this one, but zoomed in and lower with a star filter over it and a little bit of green added to it. Why? Because for some reason I was stuck on green. Because I think it's because I didn't want the blues to match too much. But I did have a blue cover just in case she was like, yeah, let's match it all the way. Because I was like, hey, you never know. So we went back and forth. As you could see, I finally got on this blue one. You can see her subtext is in this, or her subtitle is in this one. Because it was between this one and this one with the really green sky. This one was actually one of the contenders, moving to see how the title's up at the top. This is a change up of having it at the top. So instead of having everything at the top, just the titles at the top and the subtitles at the bottom. But see how it actually changes the look of a cover? So here's this one. That one. That one. So look at just the subtext. These covers, the backgrounds are almost identical, but here's the title at the top, subtext at the bottom, everything at the top. But just placement, how much placement actually changes the look of an entire cover. If I really want to mess with your minds, watch. I'll change on Canva. The beauty of Canva is like, so you're like, hey, actually, I don't like any of this font at all. But maybe I should change it into something that's a little bit more reader friendly, like this. Completely changes the look of the cover. It changes it into something completely different. Um, you can do the font matters. I cannot emphasize enough to you how much the font matters, because if you are let's see, so this is the original. Alex Brush is the original, but like here's a different one. This one, that one's like, whoa, you can't even read that one. Um, Apricots is one of the other good ones, but it's a little bit more contemporary. So it's a great contemporary feel for a handwritten one. Um, there's this one, which is cute, also more contemporary. This one is pretty fancy. That was actually the contender for the first one. Um, so yeah, font really matters and placement matters. I'm gonna go back to Alex Brush because, uh-oh, can't find it. Actually, here's the beautiful part about Canva. You're like, oh no, I changed it. And then you go up here to this undo button and you're like, okay, oh no, that's not it. That's not it. No. Oh yeah. The undo button is my very favorite tool in Canva. I can tell you, bar none. It's my favorite tool in every application, whether it's Excel or QuickBooks or Word or in Canva, because then you can, make sure that you go back to what you need. So yeah, Tara gave me permission to share with you just the different renditions of how we started versus when I sent her when I sent her the first version, I sent her, I think this one, the blue one that I thought for sure she was going to pick, this one, and the purple one. So what I was trying to say is, okay, you're looking for forest and stars, but not stars. What kind of forest but not stars are you looking for? Because I don't know. I mean, I honestly thought, besides me, who really likes green skies? I do, because they remind me of Northern Lights. Because I've had the pleasure of seeing them twice now. So it's, for me, it was more of a like, oh, this reminds me, but I didn't know if that's what she would see from it. So since it wasn't my design, I had to design for her and then go back and forth. Also, so this is the rough draft that I sent to her. And in the final draft, you'll see where some spacing is different. So see how the subtext is over here a little bit and the title is over this way a little bit. So in the final version, I went ahead and actually increased the size of the title a little bit, because when you're walking by and you're like, "Ooh, that's a pretty cover. What does that say?" Also, why font matters. If you walk by and this is in the weirdest font ever and you can't read what it says, it kind of defeats the purpose. It's like sometimes when you're reading specfic, which I love specfic, by the way, and you come across it, or a biblical name, by the way, when you read it, you go, "Zeba." And that's sometimes what font will make you do if you can't read what you're looking at. So spacing matters. So up here, I actually dropped it down from the top a little bit, not only just for the look of having the blue at the top, but just for readability. Tara's name, I actually was a little bit disappointed in myself. Wrong tab. On this tab, I don't think I made Tara's name big enough on the first version. So on this version, I changed it to make her name a little bit more prominent. We put a lot of work into the books. So it was something that I wanted to correct for this one. So does anybody have any questions?
I do.
I have. Okay, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. I'll wait. Go ahead.
Okay, well, my biggest question, especially because I mostly work with picture books, I don't want to tell the whole story on the cover, but I want to tell enough of it that they're interested to find out what it's about. How do we balance that? That's where I struggle.
So I think I love what you're saying, because I have, when you walk by an author who has done her brand or their brand well enough. Here, let me grab what I'm thinking of real quick. And we have some books I'll show you. So This is a brand that's pretty well known in the young adult, and actually Hannah knows this because we talked about this book because it's brilliant. This does not tell a huge story, but Suzanne Collins has done such a good job of her branding on her Hunger Games series that The Mockingjay is known to all of her readers. And this is right on brand for her. Sometimes it's about branding. Sometimes, so here's an oldie but goodie. Piercing the Darkness by Frank Peretti. So if you look, there's nothing that really is super revealing about this cover. It's just clouds. It's sun piercing the darkness. It sounds so silly, but it's one of those where if you look super close though, you think it's just a cover, right? Let me see if I can get this close enough to show. There's almost do you know what the book's about, right? About Demons on Earth. If you look at this, you're like, oh, it's just a pretty cover. And what I ended up noticing when I rebought this book at the thrift store, if you look at the top, they actually put in, and you can't see it on my camera really well, this is actually a demon face, just so subtly in here that you could barely tell. And I was like, that's a great design cover, because you're just like, Piercing the Darkness, Frank Peretti. Okay, this, I don't know exactly what it's for, but the cover design is giving some, but not a lot. But if you look really closely, you can see more. This is a very overt cover, giving away some, but definitely not the story. I don't know if you guys have ever read this book or watched the movie, Memoirs of a Geisha. Obviously, the picture is of a geisha. And the title itself is pretty straightforward. And so you would be thinking that it's about a geisha and their life of a geisha, but it's actually not. It's about a specific girl and her story. I would love to get more covers out, but I'm in the midst of my books are all packed because my house is for sale. So it looks like pull out more covers. But so for my book, Victoria Grace the Jerk Face, all that's on the front is a teenage daughter with her feet propped up on the wall. And the only reason I thought about it, and I walked in and I ended up taking a picture that day, is because I just thought to myself, I used to get mad at her for putting her feet up on the wall because gross. And then I'd have, feet prints on the wall. But how typical was it for her to be on her phone with her feet up on the wall? For my kid, it was typical. So I wanted it to show that it was a story about a kid. I didn't need to show her face. Actually, Hannah and I have had long book cover conversations. I am not a huge fan of having people on the cover because I loved to visualize who I'm reading about. So for me, it wasn't about having my daughter's face. It was actually just to say, hey, this is a young girl. So it puts kind of the contemporary spin on it. It shows that it's a young girl in her bedroom on her phone.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes when it comes to subtlety, it could be that. Or sometimes if you want to sell Annette, I'm just blanking on her name right now. She writes the stories about she does picture books about animals and she puts it right on the front. But sometimes you could be super overt. Sometimes you don't. It depends on, do you want a person to buy your book for what is in it to read? Or are you doing a story on obedience and that's what's in the title? And so you're wanting to show have a picture on your cover that shows obedience. It depends on what you're trying to portray. Mm-hmm. Have you ever seen different versions I have different versions of the Chronicles of Narnia. I have a set that I have owned since the early 80s, I think, is the box set that I have. And in my opinion, it's like the only version because they have pretty covers. I love them, and each of the covers shows like pictures of what's going to happen in the book. And so for me, I love that. And I've seen Chronicles. I mean, how many different versions of Chronicles of Narnia are there? If you think about it, even back when before they had pictures on the covers of books, it kind of winds to a lot of time it'll run down to what your title is.
Mm-hmm.
Victoria Grace the Jerkface was not the title for a very long time. And it actually happened. I stumbled upon it one night, saying stuff back and forth with my kids. I said something about being a jerk face. And I was like, oh, it's actually pretty funny. So it was one of those, and I wrote it down, and then I was trying to figure out how to work it into the book. Ended up being able to work it into the book, which ended up being, she calls herself, yeah, that's me, Victoria Grace the Jerk Face. And then I was like, well, that's kind of rhymey too. So sometimes it's how, and that comes down to subjectivity and how art is subjective for your book covers. If you would have told me to design the cover for Sunrise on the Reaping, I never in 1,000 years would have come up with this. Ever. Never, ever. But it's fine. I mean, Suzanne Collin already has a branding that she uses through Hunger Games, and so she stays on brand. Kind of like the second cover that I have for Tara. It's similar to the branding she wants for her indie publishing stuff. So it's not too far off. So unfortunately, I wish there was kind of like, you know how there's the acts for writing, like even for novels, how there's like the first act, you know, the sagging middle, the epic, blah, blah, blah. There's so many different types. I actually use what's called the subway writing. It's 3 plots running at the same time, and then they meet sometimes, and then they go off like this. And I wish there was a way to say, this is how you get a cover that will definitely grab people's eyes. I can say that, but it's completely subjective. You could have a beautiful woman on the cover to sell things about makeup. I will walk by that every time because that's just not what I look for. So, is there a specific cover? I mean, a specific, like, are you trying to sell an adventure? Are you trying to?
Well, I've recently published a couple books, and Hannah helped me design the one for my most recent picture book. And we made, because it's a picture book, we put the picture goes on the front and the back. And I thought that was fun. And it kind of shows the inciting action of the story, where the conflict begins in the story. And so I thought, well, that's good. It's not telling the whole story, but it's getting that first thing that causes trouble. And so I thought that was fun. And then another one I did is a chapter book. And because I write for the Christian market, I didn't want it to be too scary. But it's about a dragon, and there's an evil dragon. And so we put the eyes of the evil dragon in the background subtly. And I've had children ask, what are those eyes for? You know, they notice them. And well, they're noticeable. But I was wanting it to be compelling, but I didn't want it to scare anybody. And I didn't want parents to think it was too dark, because it's definitely not a very dark story. So I always feel like I'm juggling, bouncing back and forth. Like you said, it's subjective, and I just never know.
Well, I mean, a good way of looking at that is you can look at dragons one way, because there are people who will look at dragons. I was raised to think that skeletons were scary. Period. End of sentence, period. Years and years after The Nightmare Before Christmas came out, which people are like, ooh, if you watch the story, it is a great story about a person who just wants to help and makes the wrong decision every time, every single time. But he happens to be the king of Halloween. And so he's a skeleton. But I wouldn't watch it because I was so scared of skeletons. And sometimes you have to look at the broader thing. So if you want to portray maybe a dragon is not so scary, you portray a dragon along the lines of the Shrek dragon, who is not as scary. At first she seems scary, but then she's not. Or remember Pete's dragon?
Mm-hmm.
He was not scary. So sometimes it depends on how you portray the dragon. So You could do it simply, like as in you could come up with like an egg with the tail coming out of it, that kind of a thing. You can come up with all sorts of ways. I love dragon stories. Love dragon stories. And I absolutely think that they should not be portrayed as scary. Some of them are. I mean, heck, some people are scary. Some people aren't. So
Well, the main dragon in the story is in the forefront, and he's very cute. He's not scary, but there's just that hint of, yes, there's this evil, good and evil battle going on because we put those eyes in there. And my daughter helped. She's the illustrator, so she designed it, and I thought she did a great job.
yeah, it's kind of like remember the first ones that I showed you about Victoria Grace, the Jerkface, how it just showed the flower because we were playing on the name Marigold.
Mhm.
It fit, but it just didn't fit. It wasn't right, and I wasn't willing to go until it was right. Sometimes that means you need to pause until you have something that you're happy with. And if you're happy with your cover right now, if it's something that you published, you absolutely can get a different cover design for it too. You can reissue it with a second cover.
Okay. All right, Heather, what question did you have?
Can I show you something?
Yes, always.
It's a book cover that I created for my client because she has a book and I use Canva as well.
I love Canva.
I know, see, I know that I just checked because of what you were saying and stuff, but I'm like scared of like I don't want to use stuff we're not supposed to use. And also I don't think I'm like a super artist. So like if there's positioning or coloring, we have different options and stuff we created, but I don't know. With your artist eye, like what do you think?
So what you brought up to begin with is that if you do not use a free, if you not use an image that you own or that you have purchased and have the rights to, or that you don't use attribution to, you can be, and it is very well known, you can get cease and desist, which means the entire book has to be pulled. I cannot, for anybody listening to this, every class I've ever taught on Canva, do not use images you just pull off the internet that you think you're going to get away with. But so if you're asking for my opinion on that, your people don't want to read your subtext as big as your title. So not subtext, subtitle. So your subtitle, so from wounded to worthy, that part would probably need to be, and plus Deanne's name is not very big.
No, I thought about that when you were saying that earlier with the one you hadn't made it bigger.
Yep.
Yeah.
So the subtext needs to be, I keep saying subtext, sorry guys. The subtitle needs to be probably smaller. The section above that from wounded to worthy. That probably needs to be smaller. And I know sometimes you're gonna grab it. Actually, if you click into it and hit Control A, and then go up to your, oops, click that one, and then
Command A or Control A?
Control A.
Okay.
It keeps running away from you. And then I actually started doing it on my computer. I'm like, no, this way. If you highlight it all and then actually go up and then change the whole size, and I would actually even go even smaller than that. Because if you think back to Tara's covers, so now see how Deanne's name looks much bigger, but nope, go back up with it. Go back up. There you go. There you go.
Okay.
You want Deanne's name to be set apart.
Mm-hmm.
You want people to be able to. Also, you need to leave a bit of room on the bottom in case there's cover problems.
So bring this up.
Just a little bit, because when covers get produced, sometimes there's cutting issues.
Mm-hmm.
Some people like to run things right up against the edge, and I'm like, well, even things happen. So that is it, and it is going to be subjective. I mean, you could try offsetting, finding to the right and in the gold a little bit to the left and up. So you'd have to do it in two totally different, no, you'd actually have to split them into two different texts. So
the finding and the gold into two different texts.
Correct. So that you can actually, I guess, for lack of a better term, fiddle with the movement of finding in one and then the gold in the other. One more. There you go. Perfect. Now see how you can put there. See how that works a little bit better?
Mm-hmm.
It works with the line of the dress. Now you can actually go back over with finding, and then you could drop it a little bit so it's not so staunch. There you go. See how that changed? Now take your cursor out for a second. Nope, put that gold back up.
Okay.
Right up until it almost bumps. There you go. Real close. Now take that off for a second. Now scroll down to the next one.
Mm-hmm.
No, just scroll your actual scroll down
Oh, yeah.
to the next cover. Just look at the difference between that in
Oh, yeah.
where it says finding you and that
Yeah.
with it says finding you. The difference is the
Yeah.
it
It
is
looks
weird.
cheap
It is
or
weird
made
how
homemade.
much it is
Yeah.
weird how much just that little bit of even putting it into separate lines and pulling them apart and placing the
Yep.
spacing changes a lot. And
Yeah.
I don't know if I would actually change in you to a different font.
Yeah.
I might keep in you in the same font as the beginning, as the first two. I'd actually change that back to
That's
the,
tangerine.
yeah, I'd actually change that back to tangerine and see,
Let's see.
change that to tangerine and see if you, is in you need to be part, is the title Finding the Gold?
It's finding the gold in you.
Take out in you. Just delete it. Delete the little, those things. Move the whole thing down to the angle of her dress. Stop. Perfect. Okay, I want you to see what the difference is now. You don't have finding up in that yellow part. Scroll down. Look at that one below where you lose the word finding. Now scroll back up. Now see how finding is in the white.
Yeah, I definitely like it, the position of it. It doesn't really make sense without the in you, but what if we just make this much smaller? Would that
I
help?
wouldn't say much smaller. Probably a little bit different. And I don't think that that font is pretty easy to read. It doesn't kind of flow with the other one, but maybe you're going to have to play around with that font. And I don't think you want to put the gold, like the
No,
little
I didn't like that.
thingamajiggers. Thingamajiggers.
Yeah.
And it may not be tangerine, might not be the right one.
Yeah.
But see how if you scroll down though, look at your first version.
Mm-hmm.
Look at that next. Now look at the top version. And I would suggest actually you make Deanne's name a little bit bigger.
Okay.
And then maybe that it not be, keep going. Oops, you have to widen that out.
Yep.
Okay. And then center it. There you go. Perfect. What font do you have her name in?
Hers is in DM Sans.
It's okay. I would play with the in you, but if you look at that versus your first version, you can already tell the difference between them. I know it sounds silly to go with the angle of the dress, but it's just more of a design technique.
Mm-hmm. So are you saying move this again?
No, that's why I was saying it sounded funny when I was trying to explain to you to go with
No, yeah. I love it.
the
And
angle of the
just in the
dress.
white, it stands out and pops more.
Right.
And then we did these white down here. Should we leave them white?
You're gonna have to play with that one actually. So what I would do is I'd copy that down. Actually, I'd wait until you find out what font you want in you. You're gonna have to play with that one.
Yeah.
Because it's gonna be an interesting font that you're gonna have to put there. That's readable. Because the Finding the Gold looks really pretty in that font, but the In You looks really strange in that font.
Yeah, it doesn't look like the same font.
Correct. So I would actually enlarge that font, the In You, and make it a little bit bigger. That way you can play with your different fonts and see what you like. Because it'll change as you change through the different fonts. It'll change how big it is and all that kind of jazz. Once you figure out the in you, then I would copy it down and then play with the colors for the ones on the bottom. You also might end up putting like an ombre effect at the bottom where it makes it darker to where the white shows up a little bit more.
Yeah.
So even that looks better.
Okay.
Even Lancelot looks better. Nope, that does not look good.
Nope.
So those you're taking away from like the calligraphy kind of a thing. I think too much, oh, go up to Philosopher Bold. Go up a little bit. That one. That's definitely wrong.
I think it can't have a bold on it since the other ones are kind of
Yeah.
bold, right?
Sometimes you never know. Sometimes you
Yeah.
come up with the things that you're like, oh, I didn't realize that that would work. Alice is always one of my favorites.
I know it's one I like a lot too.
So, but yeah, you just play with that one. But that's just that one actually works. That one works really well.
Mm-hmm.
And just make it a little bit smaller. And then pull it back up a little bit. There you go.
Oh yeah, it's good.
So, and this is all a design thing. This is learning. This is playing with designs until you actually realize that, oh, I actually should split the titles and be able to position them differently. Oh, I can, I can have a different font on each line. You actually, if you wanted to make the F really big, you just write in Einding and then do the F in a completely different font and make it gigantic. So that's actually super fun to do.
Yeah. Okay.
So,
nice. Thank you.
yeah. This is more about kind of just design and figuring out what you want to present. The only thing about this one is the D for gold is a little bit close to the edge. So you may have to shuffle just slightly to the right-hand side for, nope, not all of it.
Oh, just
that
gold.
second line. So what there you go. I mean, it's just a little bit. What you're trying to do is one, make your letters.
Space. Yeah.
Yeah, you're just leaving a little bit of cut space in case something is cut incorrectly in production, which you have no control over.
Mm-hmm.
So if she uses this artwork from Canva, what are the rules with Canva's art? Is it free?
So I clicked on it. So it's this one right here. And when I click on it, it's Taryn Elliott from Pexels.
Oh, okay.
Then you go to this licensing. Oops. I just did this while she was saying it. So that's why. How did I get there? It basically had me go to, maybe it's not doing it because I'm on here. Oh, learn more. That's where I went. Learn more about this license. And then as I read through this, it says if it's Pexels or Pixabay, then go to Pexels for their licensing. And basically everything from Pexels, attribution is not required. Giving credit is appreciated. So we can totally give credit.
It's a nice thing to give credit. The other, you want to know the other great thing about giving credit? When you give credit to the author, to the photographer, they're more likely to actually put it up on their social media and tag you.
Mm-hmm, true. Yeah.
So I'm not trying to say do it for that. And
No,
also it's their work.
Yeah.
It's one of those things that I think
that. I'm an artist too. So I get that. And then it's awesome because then it says what's not allowed. Identifiable people, which she's not. Don't sell unaltered copies of a photo or video. Don't imply endorsement of your product by people or brands. Don't redistribute or sell the photos or videos on other stock photo or wallpaper platforms. And don't use the photos or videos as part of your trademark, design mark, trade name, business name, or service mark. Simple enough.
It is. Pexels has been my favorite go-to for free pictures, which is I use a lot of them in my my Instagram posts.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that was really cool to kind of follow it through and see what permissions it gave because I was like, oh no, are they gonna make me use a different photo?
Correct. Because if people
liked that one.
I have read a couple of nightmare stories of people who were sent cease and desist.
Yeah. Well, Canva came out recently with all those copyright rules and I was like, uh-oh, like
which I was grateful for because I have always known it along and I have always been pretty strict about it. And people are like, oh, I can get away with it. I'm like, I will never. I'm the person that always gets caught.
Yeah, like, same.
If I would have skipped school, I totally would have been caught because my mom would have known. That was before cell phones. She would have found me anyways.
It's so true.
Oh. But yeah, design covers, I wish, like I said, Terry, I wish that there was a formula that was like, and if you do it this A and B and C, then it will totally get all the people to be driven to you. But um, cover art is subjective, and you need to, if especially if you're producing it, good with what you're putting out. Don't ever settle for, I guess this is good enough. Because if I would have settled for one of those Victoria Grace covers and not sat on it and waited until the right thing, until I walked in randomly one day and saw her legs up on the wall, I would have had a completely different experience, I believe. Because that cover has always been, I knew that at that moment that that was the cover I always wanted. And so it was one of those, it's still, that cover still, I don't know if you guys can tell, that cover still makes me happy. I mean, still to this day, it always makes me happy. So, and I do love the other covers that I have produced too. So, but yeah. And art, sometimes it is, I will not say sometimes, it is really worth a good opinion of a person that you really trust to say, you know, I don't know if you should do that, or if you like, so like with Heather, I'm like, I don't know, you should, bump them apart from each other, and maybe try it all to the left. Maybe try putting the title down below and the subtitle up high. I mean, Heather, you can do that too. Play with it with dropping the title down to the bottom and putting the subtext at the top. You never know until you try the options and you actually work with it. It's like writing, to be honest with you. If you took the first stuff you ever wrote and stuck it in a book, you would be like, oh, I need to take that back. When doing cover art, even for yourself, you have to be willing to, do the work to make it look professional. I'm sure we've all seen, covers where you're like, but also sometimes you see covers that you think, and somebody's like, I love that. And I'm like, I hate Picasso. And they're like, Picasso's like revolutionary. And I'm like, I don't see what's happening here. I think I need to turn my head sideways or something because I don't understand what's happening. His eye's in the wrong place.
Help clients do podcast stuff and creating their podcast covers and stuff too. And it's crazy the stuff that they'll ask for. And it's like, wait, what? You want what?
Right.
And I mean, most of the time I can turn them, but sometimes I've got some clients who are like so stubborn on what they want, and it's not good looking at all. And I'm just like, I don't want to put that out with my name on it. It's like,
right.
So just don't tell anybody I coached you.
Right. And so, and I can absolutely bounce off of that and say, sometimes you will be asked to do something, you're like, oh, that's blah, blah, blah. Which is why when you start with your own stuff, you at least, you have all the skin of the game. You have the drive to get it correct. Those covers for Mercy and True, I was not putting those out until I had them right. And I sat there and fiddled with filters. I had days. You think, oh, it's black and white, don't worry about it. I'm like, look, there are 96 filters for black and white. Don't tell me to get over it. It makes a difference. It's not black. It's like black, and then there's gray black, and then there's black, gray black. Okay. So it does make a difference, and you have to be willing to put in the time. And I would always tell you to work on your own stuff first, even if it's just for fun. Even if you're like, hey, I wonder if I could design this cover that has a piece of, Hannah and I actually have a book called that we're going to put out eventually. It's all done, everything. And she did the cover art for us. And the cover is absolutely simple. It's white and it has one piece of art right in the front with the title and our names. And that's it. Because that's just what we wanted. We wanted to present it very overtly. Just what we want. Exactly. And then there are some, books that have, the overtness of the cover, like the Memoirs of a Geisha. And then there's ones like Piercing the Darkness that just look like a cloud. And so you could look really, really close and see that it looks like a demon's face in the cloud. So it can go all the different ways. So there's not one way. And I would love to be able to tell you that other programs are easy to use. I can't. I don't have any experience on any other platform except for Canva. because like I said, I really love to be able to push myself. And if people are under a budget, I think they still should be able to produce professional items if it's available to them. And Canva is absolutely free and has exceptional tools available. That's it.
Okay. Are there any other questions? Okay. I think some people may want to add questions when they watch the recording, and so we'll have to watch for any that come up. As far as if they want to use you as a cover designer, how can people find you?
I'm actually going to stick my email into the, I could just type this out, my email into the chat, and my email is authors. I actually typed it in incorrectly. That's just great. It's author. No, I did it right. Yay. Author Sarah E. Clancy. Hannah's laughing because she knows I'm like this all the time, guys. There's like, I get to do a podcast starting pretty soon, and they're like editing, and I'm like, I'm not going to edit myself. Who doesn't want to see all the parts? Come on. I talk with my hands. I'm not even Italian.
Yeah.
Sorry. So my contact, going backwards now, my contact information is Sarah E. Clancy. Nope. Author Sarah E. Clancy at gmail.com.
Okay.
Or you can get a hold of Hannah. She can get a hold of me because I've said it wrong so many times.
Well, we'll have the video on the website under Hypurpley, and we'll have the link to your Gmail. And so if people are interested in talking to you, and do you give critiques of covers if people contact you? Do you do that?
If people would like to ask me, that's great. I can't guarantee at this point because my house is up for sale. And just sometimes timelines happen, and just, I mean, God sometimes has things happen in your life that you're not exactly planning for, and everything changes and shifts. So if you need one like within like 2 days, I'm not your person. But if you need one and just want some feedback, that would be great. Please don't look for, hey, I'm looking for you to give me feedback and then help me with the design and do all the extra steps.
Yeah.
Because I do think that in cover designs, even if somebody who is your friend is helping you, you need to give them grace, and you also need to be professional with them. It is not easy to design a good cover. It is sometimes can be downright tedious just because you're talking within this much moving text, and it just doesn't look right until it looks right.
Yeah.
So grace and professionalism with a person who's willing to help with you, even a friend who's willing to give you feedback, even if it's feedback that you're like, I don't think I agree with that. Maybe that's a sign that you don't work with that person on your cover, and that's okay, guys.
Mm-hmm.
It is totally fine to not have to work with a person that everybody works with, or to not work with a person that you have always worked with, because cover art is much different than writing art. Getting feedback on actual art, book art. That's what I call it. Book art is much different than getting feedback on written art. So give grace to each other but yes, if somebody wants to reach out, just realize it's going to be some touching, like just touch as in, yeah, these are my suggestions, but it's not going to be full back and forth for a few months.
Okay. And I think that's important too, because we have a lot of brand new writers who are interested in Hypurpley and what we're doing. And we try to teach from the very beginning that we do respect each other's time and talent and give grace to each other on both sides of it. But also, if I design a cover and I think it's brilliant and I take it to someone for criticism, I need to be ready for that criticism. And it's not my little baby that, oh, you're hurting my feelings. We've got to get to that place where we're being professional. We want to see the best in what we're doing, and we want real feedback so that we can create the best we can. So I think that's important for us to always remind each other as writers and artists that critiquing is actually a gift, and we need to appreciate that.
Whether you're brand new or you've been in it for years, sometimes there are moments when you're like, I think I'm going to go for a walk because that one really stings.
Well, that's true
And
too.
you know what? It's honest.
Yeah.
And when you get to that part and you have honesty about what you're writing or what you're producing, that's when you move forward in your writing or whatever you're producing, whether it's art or whether like book art or whether it's writing. When you have the sting and when you're honest about having the feedback, and whether it's if it's an editor that it doesn't quite fit your like the editors that I had that didn't fit with editing for me, it wasn't like one line that was like, you suck. I'm sorry, some people are offended by that. It wasn't that. It was that it was a kind of an ongoing, the editing style wasn't matching my writing style. But when I have feedback from people I use and pay for editing now, when they bring something to my attention, even if I don't agree with it, I'm like, maybe I should pause.
Mhm.
So it's one of those when you are professional back and forth and say, I'm not coming at you just to come at you because this is me trying to help you see something that you may not see.
Yeah, that's good. Good advice. And you have
Because
your
I've been doing it a few years now, and sometimes I'm just like, I'm just gonna go cry for a second and I'll just start redoing my edits. It's fine.
And I want people to definitely check out your Instagram. I love following your Instagram posts. SE Clancy on Instagram. Check it out. You won't be sorry. It will brighten your day and make you laugh, I guarantee. Or it will make you think. All right. Anything else, Hannah? Were you going to say something?
I'm good. I'm just here to support my friend, and she's
Okay.
awesome and she does amazing covers. So that's all I have to say.
Okay. And we think you're pretty amazing too. We're
Oh,
excited to
I
hear from
think
you
she's the
next time.
best.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much, Sarah, for being here and talking to us. I feel like you hit on so many important things. And so often, as beginning writers or as self-published writers, we just throw a cover together. And like you said, settle for it's okay. And then later regret that. And
Don't
I
settle
know
for
with,
it's okay. Don't do it, guys. I can't tell you how many people have said, "Oh, I wish I could redo that cover." I have lost track of how many people have said, "I wish I could redo that cover." If it's indie published, you
uh-huh.
guys are doing it yourself. Don't settle for the cover that's just okay. Don't settle for the cover that you think, "I think this will be fine," because it will bug you every time you see it.
The first book I published on Amazon, I used their cover design, and huge mistake because now there's like 50,000 books that have the same cover, different words. And it's
Mhm.
like, why? Why did I do that? Learned that one really fast. So,
But yeah, absolutely. If anybody wants to reach out to me on email, or if you can't figure out because I said it wrong too many times, sorry, just grab me on Instagram. Actually, Instagram is where I'm most active. I'm kind of active on Facebook. I try to be, but I don't remember. Instagram is my jam though, so I'll always answer you there.
okay. All right. Well, thank you so much. Thank you guys for being here, and we
Thank
will
you.
see you guys next month.